What is happening out there, Roto Scouts, basketball, and football fans? What's going on, gang? Big Monday, starting out the week with a pretty decent looking Monday night football game. Pretty solid little 5-gamer on the NBA slate. Yeah, Kevin O nails it. Kind of like the NBA slate tonight. Hopefully not too much chaos. Yesterday, if you played the NBA Sunday slate, I was sitting there, had everything knocked out for football, was like, all right, I'll do the projections. I'm not going to play this slate. I'll do a light run of projections, tell everybody that I won't be around to update it because I hadn't slept. I was excited, and then I decided to play it, and then everything went completely crazy in the last few minutes with, Delano Banton getting the start at min price on FanDuel, and then ended up putting up like 14 points, which wasn't good because I had a ton of them. But yeah, it was a chaotic Sunday NBA slate. Didn't like that one, but hopefully a lot calmer today. Seems that way. There's a couple key questions, a couple key probables, etc., etc. But, seems that way. But a solid Sunday of NFL. Had the chance to take down a few tournaments. Had the chance to finish in the top, let's call it 3 or 5 in the FanDuel Millie. Basically, if our guy Gabe Davis, who had a day after we talked about him, after we wrote him up, if he had turned around and caught that last pass in overtime for the touchdown, that sends us up to the top. We take down a few tournaments. Still had a very nice little profitable day. But I bring that up because I wanted to say congratulations one last time to our guy Dennis 4G in this chat, XX Cubs fan 32 around the Discord channels. He took down, we had similar lineups. I was chasing him all day. He had a slightly better lineup than I did, but he held on in one of those FanDuel tournaments, won himself $200,000 yesterday. I think he had it in a couple other ones where he placed, top 3, top 5. So probably about a $250,000 Sunday for our pal Dennis, and just an awesome job. Built a great lineup. He and I actually talked a little bit going in ahead of lock about some of the decisions, some of the plays. He used a hell of a lot of the plays that we talked about. I believe that he, read the articles, used the projections and everything. But regardless, I don't care how much of it came from us. I just love to see the win. That's awesome for one of our good friends of the site, friend of mine. So really like to see that. And had the logo on it, which always helps out. I tweeted that out. So if you have a chance, jump over to the Roto Scouts Twitter handle. You can see a couple of the plays that were in his lineup. The whole lineup's actually in Discord if you want to take a look. But it was a Josh Allen lineup, had Ramondre in it, had Gabe Davis in it, had our guy Pat Fryermuth in it. Just a lot of the stuff we were on. So, yeah, 8-game nails it. Cubs deserves a big win. He's been putting in the work for years. He does, and he has been putting in the work, and he definitely deserves a big win. This is actually his second 6-figure takedown of, I believe, of the football season. He had another one a couple of weeks ago. But, yeah, one of the good people out there, one of the hard workers. Funny dude, too. Drops a lot of funny, obnoxious comments into the chat, which always keeps me going. Melissa's here. What's up, Melissa? Aloysius is here. Matthew Patterson's here. A lot of congratulations out to Dennis, who's probably not here yet. But he'll catch up to those, I'm sure. Kevin O, what's going on? Dell, 8-game, what's up, 8-game? Hand pink waving back to you, too. Fanatic, Trey had an interesting day today. I won't tell his story, but I'm sure he'll drop it into the chat. Trey had an interesting one that he brought up in Discord. 8-game says, better be my turn next. Haven't had a 6-figure win since 2022. Hey, 8-game, I feel you on that one. But, you pile up a lot of 5-figure wins and it can get there too. But, yeah, that would be nice to spread it around a little bit. Hopefully have a lot of people take their turn. And in the interest of that, since it is already 4:45, whoops, here's a black screen. Since it is already 4:45. We're going football first, as usual, on these dual threat shows. Let's see, does that look good? Yeah, it looks all right. What's up, Jake? We're just celebrating Dennis's big win. Dennis's monster win. Yeah, those Fanatics has never had one. Hopefully one of these days. Hopefully, buddy. Those biggies are what it's all about. That's really what takes you from I'm playing, I'm slowly building to to the stratosphere. I'm chasing them too, though. I mean, it's it's tough to take those down. That's why those top prizes are so big, because it's really difficult to get there. So it's worth celebrating when one of us does. I loved seeing that. Fanatic, I think that's life-changing for most people out there. At least most people that are hanging out with us in these chats and at our level. Certainly it's that much money is life-changing for me. I'm not sitting here rolling in dough like crazy. I've got a decent DFS bankroll. I've had a lot of success and everything, but any day that I can take $250,000 and put it in the bank, that's a big win. That is absolutely still monstrous. So yeah, just great Sunday seeing that happen for Dennis. And here's to everybody else taking their share next. Who's up next? We've got a couple of slates today. We've got the NFL to do it in. Been chasing, been all over these NFL Showdown slates and then just missing. So yeah, I'm feeling really good about both basketball and football right now, just with where lineups have been, how many contending lineups I've had, where it comes down to, hey, the guy turned the wrong way, didn't catch the ball. You can't control that, but everything we can control, I feel like we're really zeroed in on a lot of good stuff lately. So really happy with the results. 8 Game says, my first 100K win came during a year where my annual salary was 52. 2021 was a good year when it started to turn it around. That's great, man. Yeah, if you can double up the annual salary at your full-time job with one DFS win, that's not a bad way to spend a Sunday. Jody Grant says 4 figures without. Hey, that's it, and it's there are people from all different levels and that's why I never want to say like, that was $100 win, blah, 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 who cares? Like $100, $1,000 makes a difference to people. It really does, especially when you're going in for a nickel and you're winning $100. Like those are significant wins as well. So I just love seeing it, and I say it all the time. If you guys hit something, I don't care how big or small it is, tweet it at me, drop it in the Discord. I love seeing them. I tend not to grab them and do like shameless self-promotion. I did that with Dennis's just because it was so big and because he said I could. So there is a tweet out there. If you guys jump to the @RotoScouts Twitter handle, give that a little little retweet, just help do a little bit of marketing. But yeah, like I said, for me, I just love seeing them, especially on a day when if I didn't necessarily do well, which in a lot of days where you guys do well, I'm also doing well. But on a day where I don't, it just brings up my spirits, honestly. I really like seeing our people do well. So, and Dell says it. That's how you build your bankroll. That is absolutely right. So let's get into this one. We got to hit the gas pedal a little bit because we do have some stuff to get through, and I want to jump out 6-ish so that I got some time to update and build basketball lineups. Hopefully nothing crazy comes through for basketball. But interesting game here, 43-point total, 3-point spread in Minnesota. Basically, the Vikings just getting the home field advantage. So really tight game, division game. I like when these two teams play each other. I feel like we get some good football out of it in terms of the competitive nature of the game. There are some good skill players on both sides. No Justin Jefferson, unfortunately, didn't make it back for the Vikings, but they've still got some high-end skill players on their side with Jordan Addison, with Alexander Madison also at the running back position. Joshua Dobbs pulling a pretty strong projection at the top of the board, just getting outpaced by Justin Fields a little bit on both sides, but within half a point or so. Pretty solid projection there for Joshua Dobbs at a fair price, but not like a back-breaking price on the DraftKings slate. So I think he's really interesting. On the Bears side, you've obviously got Fields, his crazy slate-breaking talent on the right day. DJ Moore, there's a strong connection between those two. Khalil Herbert back into basically the lead role here. I think it's an interesting day to maybe consider the kickers, the defenses, of course, like we always are. Those are good points of differentiation for these showdown slates. We've seen defenses have a pretty prevalent role this year. We've seen a lot of ugly primetime games. Not that that's necessarily going to be the nature of this one. I do expect there to be some scoring in this one. But we've got a guy who wasn't considered even like a solid number 2 in Joshua Dobbs coming into the season. He's had a good year. He's definitely proven himself more capable than a lot of these NFL quarterbacks, these backups and these rookies that we're seeing. So I don't want to take anything away from Joshua Dobbs necessarily, but when we consider the nature of Justin Fields, his erratic nature sometimes throwing the ball, Joshua Dobbs, I do think there's room to believe that these defenses could create a little havoc, maybe create a turnover, and we're off and running if that happens. So I do think there's plenty of room for the defenses. With the not low but not crazy high point total, the kickers could definitely be involved here. And there are downboard options on both of these teams. The Darnell Mooney's, the ESBs, Equinemius St. Browns of the world. The downstream tight ends on the Bears side. KJ Osborne, Brendan Powell. To a lesser extent, I think Josh Oliver and Johnny Munda, I don't know that they necessarily hold up those projections. Oliver will be in the player pool. Not sure if Johnny Munt makes it. Not sure if there's enough targeting to support it. Guys like, the bottom of the board on the Bears side there, Kyrie Blasingame. Not probably enough touches, but we'll take a look through all the ins and outs. But typically, as I've said on these showdown slates before, I don't let anybody get involved that's projected for like less than a point. Like the Jalen Nailers, the Blazingames, Trent Taylors probably come out. I will take another look before I do the final update after the show and make sure that I've got them around where they should be. And that'll come through talking about it as well. But those guys typically come out of my player pool, especially because if you're running sims and you leave these guys in across 50,000 versions of these lineups, these guys will grab a point here, a point there, and like if they're owned at 0.01, sometimes it can get funky in how the returns look for guys like that, where there really is not much chance. You want to take chances in showdown format. You want to go for the possible over the probable to an extent anyway, but there is a limit to that, right? And especially when these guys are at the make everything work $200 pricing. You don't need much, obviously, at that price, a point and change, can pay that off, but it still gets concerning around very limited opportunity guys. If you're not going to touch the ball, I don't necessarily want you in my player pool. Look at the quarterback situation. 11-2 for Fields, 10,000 for Dobbs, 16-8, 15,000 in the captain spots on DraftKings. I do think they're both playable captains. Actually, I didn't talk about the defenses. Just on the surface level, 3.7 yards per rush attempt. Both of these teams are shutting down the run fairly effectively, so that might have a limiting impact on the Rashawn Johnson, Alexander Madison portion of this, where both teams are allowing a little bit through the air in terms of pass yards. 6.4 yards per pass attempt allowed by the Vikings, 6.7 yards per pass attempt allowed by the Bears, 15th and 23rd ranked respectively. So on the quarterback front, both of these teams are allowing plenty through the air in terms of 226 yards a game, the 6.4 allowed by the Vikings, 6.7 per attempt allowed by the Bears, and 245 a game. The Bears have allowed a significant number of touchdowns through the air, too. 22 passing touchdowns allowed on the season, a 6.9-yard defensive ADOT. They get very little pressure. They only blitz 23.8% of the time, and they do not get to the quarterback all that frequently. 15 sacks. That's a little bit limiting for the Bears because we do want, when we go to these defensive plays, we do want to stack up a lot of sacks or the potential to build in scoring that doesn't get necessarily zipped if they give 21 points away. So that's a little bit limiting, but the 9 picks are, somewhat effective, and we're just really looking for, some defensive havoc. And the sacks are less important to me on a showdown slate, where we're just looking for the big play upside out of the defenses. Those tend to be more important on main slates, where we've got a lot of defenses that they've got to compete against, rather than just being another just slot in a showdown format. Get a little bit more productivity out of the Minnesota side. Certainly, it seems like they would be the better choice defensively. 47% blitz rate, gaining pressure just 20% of the time, is not great. That should be high 20s pressure, I would think at least, if you're going to blitz that much. But they have racked up 29 sacks. So that's helpful. When I say I don't necessarily care as much that they don't get a ton of sacks in the defensive play, it is nice to have those bonus sacks and the ability to get to the quarterback in the defensive play. So the Vikings probably the better overall defensive choice. 9 interceptions for them as well. Going up against a quarterback who's thrown 6. Both of these guys have thrown 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Dobbs has had more games to do it in. They complete around the same level of passes. They throw around the same yardage per game. Fields throws the ball 26 times a game in his 7 performances. Dobbs 32 times a game. A little bit more volume out of Dobbs. They have the same 8 intended air yards per pass attempt. 4.2 completed versus 3.9. Fields a minor advantage there. Fields gains a big advantage here. 7.4 yards per pass attempt overall. 6.1 yards per pass attempt for Joshua Dobbs. It's a little bit of a difference there, but we do have to remember a lot of these stats for Dobbs did not come with this core of receivers. So does this go up? I don't have the exact number for what he's done while with the Vikings, but it's probably a little bit higher. In terms of the rushing, both of these guys can get out and run with it. 9.3 carries a game for Justin Fields. 6.5 carries a game for Joshua Dobbs, 389 yards, 5.6 per rush attempt, with 6 touchdowns on the ground for Dobbs, 5.2 yards per rush attempt, 341 yards, and a touchdown for Fields. Which one's the more dynamic runner? It's probably Justin Fields. If you just had them doing cone drills and stuff, I think Justin Fields is the better performer between the two. But Dobbs has been very, very capable. So I like both quarterbacks to be able to stack up stats, support these projections a little bit with their legs. If you get either one of them in the end zone, like the game we had yesterday with the Eagles and the Bills, where Hurts and Allen both got a rushing touchdown after we talked about their rushing touchdown upside, just helps pad the quarterback stats. I do think that provides additional support for putting them in the captain spot on DK as well. It's a minor ding to the running backs. There's also the minor ding of both of these defenses being good against the run when it comes to the running back position. So I think that supports a little bit of additional volume in the captain spot for the two quarterbacks. In terms of what they've done recently, Fields, after he missed his, I don't know why I clicked away from it before I brought that up. Fields missed 4 games, came back, threw for 16 of 23, 1 touchdown, 169 yards against Detroit in that game. Also carried the ball 18 times in that game for 104 yards. That's what we're talking about when we talk about Justin Fields' ability to run. Scrolling down to Josh Dobbs here. 221 yards, a touchdown, and interception last time out. 268 and a touchdown against the New Orleans pass defense, which is a pretty good performance. 23 of 34 for 268 and a touchdown in 2 games ago. 20 of 30 for 158, 2 touchdowns against Atlanta before that. So basically on form as Joshua Dobbs. He's got a rushing touchdown in 5 straight games, which is kind of important. The carries are about an average of 7. There's 3 games with a 7, 2 games with an 8, and a game with a 6. So call that around a 7 carry average over the 5-game stretch. 43 yards, 66 yards is the high in that stretch, but does rack up a little bit of yardage on his attempts and has definitely been running the ball into the end zone, which is, again, hypercritical for this situation. On the running back side, what did Herbert do in his return? Khalil Herbert came back, saw 31 snaps, carried the ball 16 times for 35 yards. This is against Detroit. Caught 2 of 3 targets for 6 yards. In the same game, Rashawn Johnson saw 23 snaps, carried the ball 6 times for 30 yards. Ran 8 routes, but was untargeted. Herbert ran 11 routes. It's probably about a similar split, but Herbert's easily the favored running back there right now. Johnson's here. Let me sort these by team. So Johnson's got a little bit of a projection there, and then not much left for the other backs here. Travis Homer saw 0 snaps last time out, has not seen a snap with the offense in the last 3 games, so probably doesn't even deserve the .49 that he's carrying here. That's why a guy like Travis Homer comes out of the player pool. Kari Blasingame saw 15 snaps with the offense, didn't touch the ball, ran 2 routes, wasn't targeted in the last game. Didn't play in Week 10 against Carolina. Had a similar, saw some snaps, didn't touch the ball in 2 games before that, Weeks 8 and 9. He last touched the ball in Week 7. He was targeted once, caught it for 4 yards. He had 8 carries in Week 5 for 26 yards. I think that was when some of the teammates were banged up here. So really, again, these 2 guys, just forklift out of the player pool. Even at 200, 300, I really don't think there's value there. Certainly not at 555. You're rooting for an injury at that point. On the Vikings side, Alexander Mattison, 18 carries for 81 last game. Ran 20 routes, was targeted twice, caught 1 of them for a -1 yards. 1 catch for 6 yards the game before that. 2 for 49 and a touchdown in Week 9 against Atlanta. Ran 23 routes, targeted twice, caught them both for a touchdown. Had 16 carries for 44 in that game. There's definitely volume. It's basically an 18-touch running back. We don't really crack the 20 line. No Cam Akers here to worry about anymore. You do have Ty Chandler drawing some carries. 10 last week for 73 yards. 15 the week before for 45 yards and a touchdown. In the Week 11 game, he ran 7 routes, targeted 4 times, caught all 4 of them for 37 yards. Ran 10 routes the week before that, wasn't targeted. But definitely drawing a little bit. Enough to support that projection, enough to support the projection based on some involvement in the passing game. So I think you can go either way. If you want to save a little bit of money, I think Ty Chandler's the more playable of the second running back options. It's probably, call it 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order, I think. Herbert, Madison, Chandler, Johnson. That is a good point, Jake. I did forget to mention, since he's not listed here, sometimes those guys fall out of my head. Jonathan Foreman not playing today. So that could actually create a little bit of an additional uptick there for Rashawn Johnson. That is a very good point that I did not make. Let me check. What did he do last time? Bears. Foreman last time. We're opening up another... He only saw 17 snaps in the Detroit game, but I think he came out of that game, right? If I'm remembering correctly. And then the weeks before, 38 snaps in each of those two, 20 carries, 21 carries. But that was with... oops, forgot my phone was on there. But that was with Khalil Herbert still banged up. So we're really talking about that week 11. Yeah, early exit, right ankle. So it is projected that way, but you made me pause and wonder if I should give a little bit more to Rashawn Johnson here. It's probably about right, but I'll take a look at it. Keep an eye out. I'm going to go through and update everything at 6 o'clock. Or thereabouts, depending on what time we get off of here. But yeah, with no Donta Foreman, maybe this goes up over 5 and change, a couple extra touches. I'll look where the touch splits are. Obviously, we're not going this direction, I don't think. CJ Ham at the bottom of the board on the Vikings side. I don't think there's any reason to go there, really. Probably shouldn't even have the as much as he does. What does he have? He's got a 1. Yeah, I got to get him down under 1, I think. CJ Ham hasn't touched the ball since week 8. He had 1 catch for 2 yards. Had a couple catches. He's out there running a few routes. He's seeing a few snaps a game. It is kind of a showdown. Like if he happens to catch the ball at $200 and fall into the end zone on his 1 target out of the backfield, maybe. But this probably should be below 1. Like this is essentially projecting him for a catch in a little bit, which is why he's over 1 on the DraftKings slate. But I might look at him as well. Let me note those. While I'm writing this note, I'm going to tell Joker to go lie down, Joker. Good boy. All right, so we want to take a look at Bears, RBs, and Ham. Ham, I know I'm just going to take a little bit away from. I just don't want him over a point there. There's just not volume. And then we might see this go up a little bit. Appreciate the note there, Jake. FanDuel pricing is kind of tight, says Michael Knack. Yeah, we'll see it in a minute when we get into the lineup builder. We'll see where I struggle. But they've been doing some interesting pricing this year for showdown slates. It has been a little bit tight and makes it fun. That's what they're doing instead of using the multiplier in the captain spot. DK was more friendly. The last time we did a showdown show, DK was just like, it was play whatever you wanted tonight. Forget who was in that game. Top of the board, DJ Moore, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison. It's probably 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, depending on how you want to break it down. But 2 good wideouts. Minnesota gains the advantage a little bit with Hawkinson over Colt Met. Hawkinson's a little bit more of a dynamic receiver, but they both got pretty solid tight end options. KJ Osborne to Darnell Mooney, I think advantage Vikings. Brandon Powell to Darnell Mooney is probably a little bit more of an even comparison. So the Vikings basically pick up a whole wide receiver 2 when it comes to the man versus, the player versus player comparisons here. Equinemius St. Brown, not giving you all that much. Not really keeping up with the Brandon Powell projection. Tyler Scott, similar story. A little bit more spread. Couple value guys, couple of options here on the Bears side, where the Viking side is a little bit more concentrated in that all of these guys should be getting ownership, all of these guys should be getting targets, and they're just kind of obvious and straightforward. There's a little bit more mystery down depth chart for the Bears. If we're looking at what has happened recently, start with the Bears side. So DJ, we know, is just going to get tons and tons of volume. 9 targets the last game, 7 catches, 96 yards and a touchdown. That was his first touchdown since the 3-touchdown game in Week 5. Obviously, missed Justin Fields a little bit. Wasn't over 55 yards, had 58 yards, excuse me. Didn't crack 60 yards in any of the Week 6 through 10 games. Obviously, there's a little bit of a connection here with him and Fields, though. So, DJ Moore primed for a big opportunity, I think. That's why he's priced the way that he is. Cole Kmet, 4 targets, 3 catches, 20 yards last time. 7 targets the week before that. 5 catches, 45 yards. Also carried the ball. I didn't miss that. Whoops. Had a 6-catch, 55-yard, 2-touchdown game back in Week 9. 10 catches for 79, no touchdowns in Week 8. In his performances with Fields, that's 1 through 6. He was targeted 7, 6, 2, 9, 5, and 3 times. He had 2 touchdowns in Week 4, 1 touchdown in Week 5. The volume really basically unchanged, with or without Fields. It's maybe a minor uptick in actual catches. I would suspect, I don't have it in front of me, but I would suspect that the ADOT lessened a little bit. Just operating a little bit more in close in those games. But obviously a very solid tight end option. He's targeted significantly in the red zone. No targets in the red zone last week in the limited looks in only 4 targets, but 1 the week before, 2 the week before that, 1 the week before that, and a run of early season targeting in the red zone. So plenty of faith in Cole Kmet. Then we get a little bit ugly. Mooney, 1 catch, 24 yards last week on 1 target. Ran 22 routes on 42 snaps, 27 routes the week before, drew 4 targets, caught 2 of them for 14. Had a decent Week 9 at New Orleans against that good pass defense. 5 catches on 6 targets, 82 yards. He hasn't been in the end zone since Week 1. 4 catches, 53 yards, and a touchdown in Week 1 on 7 targets. That was with Fields. That's good news. 4 catches for 51 in Week 4. Had no catches and only 1 target across Weeks 2 and 3 with Fields. Had no catches, 4 targets in Week 5 with Fields. So it's a very up and down roller coaster type receiver. Not a lot of touchdown production on the season. Showdown slate, he's absolutely on the board. And he costs, $48.72, $8,000 on FanDuel. Probably a little bit better as a flex play on the DraftKings board, just relative pricing-wise. Going to be a little challenging on FanDuel, to be honest, at $8,000. That's a lot. Equinemius St. Brown saw 30 snaps with the offense in the last game. Ran 12 routes, caught 2 of 2 for 19 yards. He's been out most of the season as well. He had 1 catch for 4 yards in his return in Week 10. Ran 11 routes, targeted once. Hasn't been in the end zone all season. He's seen those 3 targets, and then in Weeks 4 and 5, he played limited opportunity. Saw 1 target in each of those games. Tyler Scott has been a little bit more involved. 1 catch for 4 yards last week, 1 for 15 the week before. Running routes every week. Some of it in the absence of ESB, but got out there for 9 routes last week. Had, just trying to look for weeks where they're both healthy, let's say. Yeah, 9 routes versus the 12 that ESB ran in Week 11. He tied him with 11 routes in run each in Week 10. All the way back in Week 5, it was 13 routes run for ESB, 1 target, 7 routes run for Tyler Scott, no targets. 7 routes the week before that, no targets, but he had 2 carries for 19 yards. We're going all the way back to Week 4. That was against Denver. ESB ran 21 routes that week, was targeted once, caught it for 21 yards. So you're talking about very thin options with these two. But for Showdown, for these cheap prices, you throw them in, you take your chances. If you're building one lineup, do you necessarily want to go that way? There is win equity in doing so. But if you're just looking to cash a lineup, then you probably don't dabble. In the downboard tight end sense, Robert Tonyan's running a few routes a game, not really all that targeted. Mercedes Lewis running even fewer routes a game. During the very infrequent target, he's been targeted 3 times all season. Tonyan gets a little bit more action. In Week 10, 22 snaps, 10 routes run, no targets. Mercedes, 20 snaps, only 2 routes run, no targets. 28 snaps in week 11 for Mercedes, ran 4 routes, no targets. So Tanyan's more the receiving between the downboard tight ends. Tanyan's more the receiver, where Mercedes is more out there to block, and he runs an occasional route. If I'm throwing that dart, it's probably on Tanyan, which is where those have gone for me in the past. It's slightly supported by the projection. Mercedes probably dips below a point and comes out of my player pool. And then Trent Taylor down the board all the way. We're talking about 5 snaps each of the last 3 games with the offense. 1 route run. Not a lot there. TJ Hawkinson. 7 targets. Basically, target volume cut in half in week 11 from what he saw the 2 weeks before that. 15 targets in week 10 against New Orleans. Caught 11 of them for 134 yards and a touchdown. That's your upside with TJ Hawkinson. Game before that, 12 targets, 7 catches, 69 yards. Has not been under 50 yards since week 4. Has not had fewer than 4 catches, which is the Denver game last time out. Before that, it was 6 catches since week 6. 6 for 50, 11 for 86. It's a lot of volume going his way. An average of, I don't know why I'm guessing at it because I've got the actual number here, and we haven't been using this screen all that much that you guys can actually see. Showing 9 targets a game, 2.1. This is old. These 30 yards per route run I haven't updated. The 9 targets a game I have, monster volume for them. Red zone targets, he's seen 9. Jordan Addison's seen 13. KJ's seen 9. They throw the ball a decent amount when they get in the red zone. Addison last time ran 37 routes, 6 targets, 7 targets in each of the 2 games before that. The lead wide receiver while Jefferson's out. 5 catches for 52, 4 for 69, 3 for 44. Hasn't been in the end zone since week 8, but did have a good run. 5, 6, 7, and 8. He had, 5 touchdowns? 2 in week 7 against San Francisco. 7 catches, 123 yards, and 2 TDs that week. And then 1 in each of the games around it. Also had touchdowns in weeks 1 and 2. Primetime receiver for them. They're going up against the defense again, just allowing 250 yards, 245 yards a game. 2 touchdowns a game, 1.3 touchdowns a game allowed by the Minnesota defense. A lot of support for some passing upside in this one. So I think we do sprinkle around a lot of shares just in the flex spots of these different receivers within reason. KJ, 39 routes, 2 targets, had a catch, 7 yards. That was in a return from a concussion. So you can kind of forgive him for maybe being out there and not totally 100%. Probably expect a little bit more in this one. Going back to week 8, he saw 10 targets, caught 8 of them for 99 yards. A lot of games with 4 or 5 catches, 30 to 45 yards, somewhere in that range before that. Hasn't been in the end zone since week 3. Touchdowns in week 2 and 3. But the clear number 2, 2.5, whatever you want to call him. Brandon Powell right in that range as well. Powell, in the game that Osborne missed in week 10, drew 5 targets, caught 4 of them for 35 yards. And then with Osborne back last week, still 42 snaps, ran 28 routes, targeted 4 times, caught 3 of them for 32. So I think there's a lot of justification for getting Brandon Powell in. Seems like pretty clear that he's going to maintain his volume. And with them presumably throwing the ball a decent amount tonight, I think there's going to be enough passes to spread around to these guys. Josh Oliver, 4 catches for 47 and a touchdown against Denver in week 11. Ran 8 routes, targeted 4 times, caught them all. That is his most productive game of the season, by far. But enough to support a little bit of touchdown upside. He's been targeted in the red zone a few times. That one looks like it came on a red zone target. He had 1 red zone target in week 9, 1 in week 3, 1 in week 1. 2 touchdowns on the season. So that's for showdown slates. If this was a main slate or even a multi-game, like 3-game slate, he's very, very limited in that format. But for this, considering that they do occasionally call his number when they get in close, it's all we really need at these prices. 7,000's a little bit more challenging on FanDuel for that projection, but at the very low DK prices, those work. Johnny Munt has not had had 2 catches in week 10. I was looking at the wrong column. Has not had any rushing opportunities. 2 catches in week 10, 1 each in weeks 8 and 9. Targeted just once in the red zone all season. I don't think we go there. I think that's too thin. He might stay in the player pool on DK. Maybe you get away with it. But obviously, I think you need him to either rack up somehow like 4 catches and then 35 yards or fall into the end zone. And then Jalen Naylor, just on the bottom of the board here, just because he'll be active. 39 routes run, 1 target, caught it for 16 yards in week 10. DNPs from weeks 3 through 9. Week 11, just 3 snaps with the offense. That was when KJ came back. So I think he's more just the injury dependent. Something has to happen weird for him to get any actual looks. So he's probably out of the player pool. Let's get into the builder. It is 5:17. Try and leave us a half hour to fly through the basketball slate. Maybe it goes 45 minutes and I go up to 6:15, but I'd really rather not do that. So let's get into the DraftKings side here. I think it's important to see what these quarterbacks can do. So let's go Josh Dobbs in the captain spot. And we'll give him... let's get funky out of the gate. Let's give him KJ. Should be enough to give us Fields as well. That's not a bad start. 6,000 left per position. And these guys are not expensive, so we can do basically whatever. Let's see what happens if we try and give Fields DJ. Now we're cheap. Now we're 39, but we've got plenty of guys to use in that. With Dobbs up top, let's give him Powell for 2K. This is going to be duped. And now I got back to 58, so I can go... I've got KJ in there. I can go defenses. I can go kickers. I can get to Darnell Mooney if I want him. I can go Josh Oliver, ESB. There's Ty Chandler at 58. That's probably an interesting way to go. That's duped 37 times. Spends all your money. But obviously we can get to like whatever we want here. Let's go a different direction, though, to keep it a little bit less popular than that. Fields, DJ. Let's take DJ out of there. Let's go Cole Kmet. Give them their opportunity there. Vikings D. 7,600. Madison. That would be a weird way to take that. 48 dupes. I don't like that. If I do this, give Fields a receiver that nobody wants. And then the hell is, there he is. Let's switch out KJ for Addison. That gets too popular. I don't know which way I want to go here. What do I have? Dobbs in the captain, Addison, Fields and Mooney. So we need to load up a little bit more Minnesota side, I think. I guess we give him Powell. And then you got 88. So we leave a lot of money on board. Still 29 dupes. Jeez. Trying to get to something low owned. Let's go a different direction. Let's go skill in the captain spot. You don't have to use both QBs. I mean, that's part of why the ownership was driving up so high. But I think for this game, both of these QBs are going to be pretty relevant. 51 per. Give me Joseph again. What about that? Like a Minnesota crunch. 59. $51 dupes. Jeez. Not on my game today, guys. We're just too chalky. Way too chalky. Alright. Let's take Fields out. Go a completely different direction with this thing. No, doesn't make sense. Addison, too popular. Man, I don't like this DraftKings slate. I thought FanDuel was going to be the challenging one. The DraftKings board's just too wide open. I mean, I haven't gone down to a lot of these guys, which is where we'll get to a lot of those low-owned plays. But I'm just, with all this money to spend, like, this is where the public's going to be, for sure, is just slapping together a lot of these star caliber plays. So you will gain a lot of leverage, I think, by going to any of these downboard options. But man, this is not pretty. Let's go with a... I gotta find something low-owned. Fields with ESB. This is just like forcing it. Alexander Madison. With Joseph. And then we'll go back to the Bears side. We'll go Kolkmet. And then we've got 13 grand. So I can get literally anybody on the board here. And I'm going to spend it on... Rashawn Johnson. That'll get you. That'll get you unique. Leave 10,000 on the board and put together a shitty lineup. Is that playable? Rashawn Johnson, a little bit of love, and maybe we bump that up to 5-ish, as we talked about. Komet, no reason that he can't succeed. Madison, no reason that he can't succeed. Justin Fields with 2 receivers, obviously a very downboard option in ESB, but a little belief that he'll get some volume there. I don't think this lineup couldn't succeed. It is a Fields captain too, so I mean, if you're looking for Fields captains, like that's kind of probably going to be the lineup that you'll have to, the type of lineup anyway, that you'll have to embrace to be able to get him unique. Seth says Ty Chandler season. Okay. Get even more unique by doing that. That one's also a 1. That leaves 11-6 on the board. I mean, if I take Dobbs, like, what if you do that? See, even just doing that, putting the other quarterback in for where Equinemius St. Brown was, it takes your dupes up to 17 already. That still leaves 32 grand on the board, and it's not necessarily the best version of one of these lineups. I've already got Komet in there. Challenging day to build non-dupe lineups on DraftKings if you're using the primetime players. If you go like a Brandon Powell, these are easier to get unique, I suspect. Yeah, let's go with the Ty Chandler call, and then see. If you just start with a very unique captain, you can obviously get that down to a playable 10 dupes. And you can go different directions in here. If you didn't go DJ there, let's say you went double tight end. Whoops. Carved it down to 9, took one additional dupe off. Or we wanted to go... Nope. More popular. Alright, so these are the nature of the decisions we can make here. Whoops. I did that the wrong way around. If you switch those guys, nobody wants Mooney in captain. Helps you lower the ownership a little bit. challenging on DK today. Challenging. Matthew Patterson says St. Brown Equinemius turns into his brother for one night. Yeah, we get the old, what's that, the Morris twins in the NBA, where allegedly they've switched teams for a night from time to time. Let's jump over to FanDuel. I know that wasn't the best breakdown for DK, but let's do one more. I get annoyed when I can't get a good lineup in here that I really like. That last one, the ones that got down to lower uniques were not bad, but we haven't looked at a Colt Met captain. Let's look at Colt Met, Justin Fields, Ty Chandler, double running back from the Vikings. Let's go a really different direction. This is not going to be a good approach to this because the Bears' rush defense is actually pretty good. 81. What if we go, let's load up the running back spot. It's got to be a contrarian approach to this slate. You go Kmet and Fields in the captain spot, so we got a lot of rushing, a lot of work on the ground. Little support for the idea of just a outlet pass to the tight end for some touchdown upside. A lot of work between the 20s for the running backs for Fields. And then we've got 95 in this spot, so you could go like Hawkinson on the other side for the tight end play. And that's still 18 times duped. But you can get lower than that if you just wanted to embrace you could even go really enthusiastic about your rusher running only plays and get down to 5. I don't know that I love that. But if we use like an ESB in that spot, you're obviously very low. He's got to be super low on projection. It's cheating. Go with a kicker in one of these roles. Let's go Greg Joseph. So like I said, it's two good rush defenses, so I don't necessarily love this idea, but it is a contrarian approach to how everybody's going to be playing this game. And you do have talent in Ty Chandler, Alexander Mattison, Khalil Herbert there, obviously Justin Fields. You are playing a captain who is dependent on Justin Fields throwing the ball, so you get a little bit of that upside in the Bears. So just thinking it through, and then obviously the kicker, you could go Santos in that spot if you want to go. Probably makes more sense to use Santos, actually. But either way, you're playable, but your narrative is off script for what this game's probably going to be. Sometimes good, sometimes bad to do that. But just think in terms of the how the narrative of the game is playing out, how Vegas sees the game, how the defenses stack up, and then if you alternate from what the field is approaching this game as, which we've seen a lot of these primetime games go sideways, I think you can find success that way. I'll call it Dobbs in the captain spot just because I've got him projected basically the same as Fields, and I assume everybody will go Fields. And we'll give him TJ, and we'll take Fields for the flex spot, and we've still got 7,500. I don't know that I necessarily agree anymore that the FanDuel pricing is all that tight on this one. I don't love Rashawn Johnson, but just to illustrate. St. Brown with Fields, and then we've got 85. Can we get to Addison? No. Can we get to KJ? Yes. That would be in my pool. It would depend on how it simmed out. 12 dupes makes it into the pool. It's usually like 15 is about the cut line. It's 1 in 15, 1 in 5,000 is usually around the cut line for me when I'm sorting these manually. So basically, it just makes it. Don't know that it would make it through Sims, but it's not a bad lineup. You obviously have, third, second receiver types here. You've got the prime receiver for Dobbs. I don't dislike that one. It's playable. Not unique, but playable. What if we take Hawkinson into the captain spot? Can I get DJ Moore in with Fields? And I have 1,000, so no, I cannot. I should look at the pricing before I ask these questions to the universe. I got 75 per. Gets me back to 95. Gets me in kicker, defense, KJ Osborne, Ty Chandler range. to go with that. I was just looking at how high end you could make this. If you save 500 there, then you get 77. Load up those Vikings. This one would probably make more sense with like that, but it's going to be more popular like that, obviously. And you do see a lot of the time, you can gain edge or you can be right there, and depending on how one pass falls, this, as opposed to having Dobbs up there and the 3 receivers in the flex spots, would be competitive all the way down. It would just depend on where those catches fell. But if the other guys, really start racking things up, obviously you want Dobbs. 630, 532. Let's do one more. One more, and then we'll go. Let's get something different. On FanDuel, going that route is just kind of a differentiator in terms of popularity. Obviously, the savings are non-existent without the multiplier. That's a different play from site to site. Pretty sure you guys know that already. I just keep grabbing both QBs because they're so highly projected and they're so likely to be good scorers here. Can we get TJ into this one? 65. Yeah, we can. Then you got to embrace that's obviously extreme. I don't actually, for Showdown, hate that completely. This is probably weak with the Chandler captain play, mostly. If I spend 95 in the captain spot, let's see your Vikings Vikings D captain. Fields, Dobbs, Hawkinson, Tanyan. Spends all your money. I don't think there's anybody I would rather turn that into, but again, that's getting very value-oriented. If you want to be more realistic, 65, you can go ESB there. That's an odd duck that's kind of playable. It'll be duped a couple of times, but Chandler in your captain spot, that's where you get a little question. What if we do like a... If you revert that and go Dobbs, captain, Ty Chandler just as a flex, you get up to 13 dupes. This is the better version of this lineup. But again, the alternates, I think, that's where you get totally interesting. Right? Let's say the 2 touchdowns go to Ty Chandler on the ground. And Josh Dobbs just has a 1 touchdown to support the rest of the offense, decent day. You're going to want it this way, and you're less duped that way. That's what we're playing for here. Yes, this is the more likely. But this is the better lineup in terms of actually winning the tournament. Or actually winning the tournament with so few people that you get a very good payout. This DraftKings one is still bothering me. I'm not gonna build another lineup. We don't have time. Fuck me. Is Jokic is out? Didn't need that. All right. Let's get into this. Jokic and Aaron Gordon out for Denver. That's going to change things. Everything on the NBA sheet is going to be irrelevant when it comes to our sim result. I mean, Jokic wasn't exactly like burning the field down in terms of win rate or anything, but that's going to change. Obviously, it creates some values and everything, so that's going to change things. Let's see if I can get this on the screen. He was our most highly projected guy. All right. Let me pull up the projection sheet too so I can actually think that rotation through now. Yeah, that's usually a day where I'll give Aaron Gordon a nice little bump in terms of like rates and stuff. What else has changed? Let's see. Cam Reddish is also out. Aaron Nesmith playing. I think that's the only changes so far. Also questionable on this slate, LeBron, Jordan Poole. Those are two, I think, the two biggest lingering question marks. I was expecting Jordan Poole to be the problematic one during this show. I was kind of expecting Joker to get out there. All right. So we're dealing with... I'm just looking at the... I know you guys can't see this. I'm just looking at the rotation sheet here. So I gotta take... This is going to go to like... there, and then I gotta find 20 minutes. Ugh. Bear with me, guys. Sorry for the silence. I mean, if that's the route this is gonna go, this is gonna get funky. Let's see, there's some minutes up here. There. I don't want to declare it DeAndre Jordan Day, but shit. It's 3,500 on FanDuel. He's 3,200 on DraftKings. My inclination is maybe a 24-24 split. Is that the best way to handle it? If I give him, I mean, I can't give him 28. If I give him 24. That'll probably be some more minutes for... Yeah, I shouldn't go 20... What has DeAndre done this year? What's his maximum that he's played? This is where it gets really fun. Usually the stuff I don't like doing on shows. 12 minutes, the 2 times he's been out there. All right, so I mean, just in the interest of getting the show in gear here, we're going to have minutes for DeAndre. We're going to have minutes for Zeke Naji. And then it'll probably be a sprinkling of additional minutes across the guys who were already in. But one of those guys, and it's probably going to be DeAndre, is going to become a value play here. What's Najee's price? Najee's 39 on FanDuel. That'll be valuable. 52 on DK. Probably not going to hit value on DK. That's an aggressively high price for Zeke Naji on DK. Holy shit. I mean, if I throw him like 24, he might be moderately relevant around that level, but I wasn't gonna. Yeah, I don't think he prices in at 52 on DK, unless he ends up with a big chunk of minutes. All right, so that's going to change. That's going to have an impact. A lot of these percentages are going to skew pretty differently. Let's talk about some of these guys in terms of their Points per dollar values. Let's talk about some of these guys in terms of their positioning, their rates, and then let's just get through this. This is a totally different slate than it was when I put this stuff together. And, of course, the Vegas numbers are going to be different. Jump to that. I was really expecting Joker to be out there. All right. Vegas-wise, Portland, Indy. 12-point spread in Indy's favor. 240-point total is our biggest total on the board. That Denver-LA game at the end of the night is now a 7-point spread in the Clippers' favor. 219-point total. That game had been... Oh, actually, that's not changed. Denver was 7-point dogs? That must have been a line for Joker out that I didn't notice. There's no way Denver was a 7-point dog in LA with Joker healthy. Right? Anyway. It just changes the nature of that game overall as far as a viable DFS target. 232.5 with a 5.5-point spread between New Orleans and Utah. 236.5 points on the board between Washington and Detroit in a close game, 2.5-point spread. That could be a little bit interesting. Some values in that game. If you don't get Jordan Poole, you get a weird one there too. 231-point total, 5-point spread between the Lakers and the Sixers. LeBron's still questionable in that one as of the last time I saw. Let's get into some of our top DK. We're going by points per dollar, guys, as it used to look. Justin Holiday from that Denver team drawing some value. So there's going to be just a lot of Denver values today. He was in 50% of winners in the original sim at 3,300 on the DraftKings slate. He's 3,500 on the FanDuel slate. 21% of winners over there. Not a huge projection. Not a gigantic performer by any means. A .57 DraftKings points per minute player. .55 FanDuel points per minute. In 27 minutes the last time out, he put up 15 fantasy points. That's, this is kind of destructive to lineups, even at the 35, 33 pricing. When you get those value guys who don't even make value on those low pricing, like Delano Banton last night, it's very, very limiting. But they are pre-lock, just kind of critical lineup building components because of how they let you lever up to stacking up additional plays. Jay Nivey, Aja Thompson, both coming in with decent points per dollar values. Aja Thompson, I have him at decent projections. I mean, right around his FanDuel points per game average. I think he's averaging like 33 and change on FanDuel. I've got him at a 34 and change projection. And they're in a game. I have them picking up about 4 possessions today. So I've got him outperforming his already excellent season by a little bit. But I think it's realistic. I mentioned that because I saw he was lower projected by a pretty significant margin in some other sources. So I'm just concerned about where other people have that one. I think I'm right. I hope. I think the model's right. I think the minutes are on point. So he's looking like a good value in terms of the points per dollar, delivering around 10% returns. So in terms of the slate, he's just a cog in the machine. But if he's at my projection, he's a cog in the machine. If he's at the projection that's roughly 5 points lower, I think that is damaging to his upside. So it really depends. He's going to be one of the ones that'll be a little bit of a inflection point between where we're at and between where some, not all, but some other sources are out. Jordan Poole, if he doesn't go, obviously is going to create another piece of chaos on this slate because he was projecting out fairly well. 6,600 at point guard shooting guard on FanDuel, 68 shooting guard only. Was landing in 36% of FanDuel winners, 22% of DK winners, 5.20 DK points per dollar, a .98 DK points per minute performer on the season. Nobody's favorite play to use. Obviously, got even less favorite after he late scratched after lock the other day. That was, as I mentioned on, I think, an NFL show that night, that was when I was like, trying to skip shares of him anyway, and then it turned out that he was late scratched, so I still had too much of him. But just not a player I really like. Cade Cunningham, definitely a player I like. 5.14 FanDuel points per dollar, 5.18 on the DK scale, 1.06 DraftKings points per minute this season, 0.99 FanDuel points per minute, but a high-end performer on a short slate, point guard and shooting guard eligible, only 8,000 on the FanDuel slate, 8,300 point guard only on the DraftKings slate. So he picks up a little bit of value by virtue of being a little bit inexpensive on FanDuel and the multi-positioning. I like that option a lot. Let's see here. Yeah, just pulling up the game log. Yeah, Del22 is pointing out DeAndre, as we said, DeAndre's played 2 times this month and 12 minutes per game. Zeke's played quite a bit. Zeke Nnaji is the more regular player. I can close this. The more regular player, the more regular contributor. Looking at his game log for the season, he hasn't been over 17 minutes. He played 17 on November 1st. It comes down to, in terms of the minutes, the way the minutes fall, it'll probably just come down to if they name a starter or not, and then otherwise we're just kind of guessing. But I think the idea of Nnaji 18, 20, 22 max, I think is supportable. I suspect we do get DeAndre as the starter. So I think he's got to be in like the 24. My initial inclination was to go higher, but and then when I realized we had Nnaji to work with, I calmed down a little bit as you guys were watching me, try and figure that situation out. But I do think that DeAndre is the guy who deserves a little bit more in terms of the minutes projection. At least on this side of being able to actually sit down and calm down and look at it for a minute. Either way, they're both going to hit that value board. But as I said, that Zeke Nnaji salary is too high to make him a good value play on DraftKings, unless you decided to project him for like 32 minutes, which I don't think is at all rational. Looking further down this board, a lot to talk about. Let me sort it by positions. Let's start with the centers. DeAndre Ayton was showing a decent projection, 5.04 per dollar on the FanDuel slate, 5.1 per dollar on the DraftKings board, but not really landing in a lot of winners. We've just got some less expensive, like Jalen Duren was getting into more winners before, $9,800 AD, 11.7 on Joel Embiid. Kelly O was pulling some of these value center spots. So just like it looks like DeAndre Ayton is just kind of caught in between, where he projects out fairly well, about a point a minute, but doesn't really have a home based on the salary and where he landed in these sims. The points per dollar is good. Top points per dollar mark at the position on DraftKings, but it just didn't matter. This might change wildly with Joker coming out, but it's not like a ton of those shares were going in Joker's direction. We might just see an uptick for these guys who were actually getting some of the win rate. AD and Joel Embiid, even more so now, are just pay-up luxury items. You can absolutely go there. They were landing in winners a fair amount of the time on both sites, and that'll probably go up. Joker we can ignore. As I said, Kelly O, interesting-ish. 24-minute projection is a 1.02 FanDuel point per minute player, 1.05 DraftKings point per minute player. Has been involved at value salary through the start of the season here and has been pretty relevant. Walker Kessler played 21 in his return, put up 30.2 FanDuel points, 1.02 FanDuel points per minute, 0.98 DraftKings points per minute. A little bit more upside ceiling in terms of raw points on the FanDuel board. 5,700, not a bad buy over there. 5,500 on DK, landing in a fair amount of winners himself. Jalen, Christian Wood. I don't know how much these guys cling to these to relevance, or Jalen anyway. Christian Wood wasn't really drawing anything relevant. But Jalen Smith for an 18-minute projection at 41, 42 probably just loses any of this around the DeAndre, whatever DeAndre is going to pull. If I even give DeAndre just like 18 at 35, 33, I think he, or 35, whatever his price was. He's right down here. Where is he? 35, 32. If I just give him like at 13 minutes, he was showing a little bit of value. in terms of where the sims were just based on that price. So if I give him even 18 minutes, he's going to just take away all of the value from any of these other $4,100 Jalen Smith types. In his limited performances, by the way, DeAndre's been a 0.67, 0.72 player per minute. Is Zeke a power forward only on DraftKings? Is that why I don't have him? Oh, you know what? I don't think I had him projected. It's not N-A-J-I? Just N-A-J-I? Oh, come on. N-N. I knew there was something tricky there. Oops. All right, fine. I won't copy and paste it. So Zeke wasn't projected. He's averaging 10 minutes, played 17 games. So that's what Dell was bringing up. He's played more, but he's only playing like 10 minutes a game. I think it's unrealistic to expect that he's going to go out there and play like 28. But if he gets the start, maybe we do get there. Overall, 0.73 DraftKings points per minute so far this season, 5,200. That's why 52 is just a weird, out-of-line kind of a price. 39 would keep him relevant, power forward and center on the FanDuel slate. He's center only on DraftKings, probably another ding in terms of his value. Even if we didn't go DeAndre getting more minutes, I think he would just get eaten up by some of these guys. Some of... where the hell did they go? No, we're not at the center position anymore. That's why. I think you get eaten up by $4,200 Jalen Smith still. So it's different. Where DeAndre getting a projection would probably chew some of these guys up, I think Najee getting a projection at 52 would still get chewed up by most of those guys. Interesting situation. Watch the projections update. Watch the minutes. 5:53. You're going to try and still punch out at 6 o'clock, guys. So we're going to fly through these next little pieces of value here. And let's just talk about some forwards. Justin Holiday, we did talk about at the top there, but 35 on FanDuel, 33 on DK, shooting guard and small forward. There should still be some maintained value, even with additional pieces of value hitting the board, with some good pay-up options today. I think we'll just get more Starsy Scrubsy as these things start to come together. Aja Thompson I mentioned. Fontecchio from Utah, 3,900 at small forward, getting a little bit of relevance on FanDuel, more so on DraftKings. We'll see where this goes, but right now showing around 30% in the winners, small forward and power forward for 39. Another significant points per dollar play, 5.02 points per dollar is pretty good. Rocco, 21-minute projection, nobody's favorite player to go to. 21 minutes the other day, 16 FanDuel points. Got him projected for 3 additional FanDuel points, not really landing in the FanDuel sims, not really becoming a critical piece on the DK slate either. Jeremy, oh, that's right, we're sorted by DK points per dollar. So despite a good points per dollar, Rocco not really hitting the board. Some more fun, more playable guys in Jeremy Grant, Kyle Kuzma, Zion. High-end performers here, 0.93, 1.23, and 1.20 FanDuel points per minute, 0.96, 1.28, 1.22. Good values here, good returns for 2 star-ish players in Kuzma and Zion. Kuzma's having a year. 1.28 DraftKings points per minute, 1.23 FanDuel points per minute. Bit of a clunker here, 25 minutes, 27.4 FanDuel points. Not sure what happened there. Was that foul trouble? Was that a blowout? Didn't get a chance to look. Kamara, 26-minute projection. Not really clinging to any relevance on FanDuel. Same story on DraftKings. Despite a good points per dollar, doesn't look all that relevant. 97 for LeBron. If he plays, he's LeBron. You can always go there. Another guy that's just kind of a pay-up star. One of the luxury items on the slate. All of the Clippers. Here's Kawhi. Here's Paul George. All of those guys, 19% on FanDuel, 16%, 14%, and 12.7%. And Harden's going to be at similar levels. All those guys are good, mid-priced, star caliber type guys. Any one of them could go off and break a slate on any given night. A lot of nights we're just going to get them at their 1.12 for Kawhi, Paul George 1.20, Harden is at like a 1.05, 1.08, something like that if I remember correctly. So Paul, this hasn't been updated for the change with Jokic out. The show started before that. The projections will be updated in a little bit after I get done with the show. So, yeah, as I was saying, a lot of nights I think these Clippers are just going to kind of look like who they are, and then if you happen to have the guy who goes off that night in the lineup, that'll be beneficial. But we might see these guys, they've already dipped a little bit in price from their peaks. They might come down slightly more just based on kind of a three-headed attack there where each guy's going to be able to be involved, but maybe nobody has the extreme usage, the extreme peaks. MPJ probably picks up a little bit of value. He's going to see a little bit of a rate increase, I'm sure. I didn't have, obviously, a chance to look into where the rates go with both Aaron Gordon and Jokic out, but I suspect that MPJ is going to take a little bit of a jump here. Might end up picking up a couple of minutes. Definitely going to pick up some rate upticks. I would suspect we'll see him be a little bit more relevant than these returns. Right now, didn't look like a crazy good play, but was playable in terms of the points per dollar, 4.6, 4.7. A reasonable just is who he is type mid-range play previously now is probably going to be a pretty relevant part of the slate. John Collins is a relevant part of the slate. He has not gone away all season. He's just been involved. The pricing hasn't really changed all that much. 6,300 power forward and center on FanDuel, 35% of winners over there. 6,600, same positioning, 28% of winners on DraftKings. Bruce Brown with a 33-minute projection looks pretty relevant. We did get Nesmith confirmed back into that rotation. I have him projected, so that shouldn't impact anything here, but I'll make sure that we don't have any kind of an impact there. We've got Ben Mathurin in Indy, showing a moderate is who he is kind of results. Not really all that relevant to the slate. Isaiah Livers with a 26-minute projection at 3,900. Minorly relevant on FanDuel. Not a big projection by any means, 3.95 points per dollar, a 15-point projection. But still getting there a little bit based on the low salary. At 35 on DraftKings, he's getting there a little bit more. He's a 0.47 per minute player. This is a potential absolute total clunker that we probably won't need anymore with the value that's emerged. But he was showing a little bit of value previously. Julian Strother at 19 minutes previously might go up into the 20s, but not by a crazy amount. Showing a little bit of value. All these value guys are going to be just completely changed by the emergent value now. But those are guys to keep an eye on in the new set of projections. Buddy in the Indy rotation. Looks pretty relevant on FanDuel. Less so on DraftKings for 64. 5,300. That's not a bad price for a 0.95 FanDuel point per minute player. Buddy will go out and have these games on you. 28 minutes, 22 fantasy points. That's a disaster. But there's upside there too. Right scoring night for Buddy. That could be supported. Denny Avdija looks very relevant on FanDuel. Pretty relevant on the DraftKings board as well. Only 4.3 points per dollar, but hitting positionally 6,100. 5,800 on the FanDuel slate, both forward spots. Has them a little bit more relevant than across town on DraftKings. No Jordan Poole. I suspect a couple more minutes, a little bit of a rate uptick maybe for Denny. If we don't get a Jordan Poole, and that would be downstream for just a lot of the regulars for Washington. What else? Who else looks relevant here? 10%? Who's this 10%? Austin Reeves in the LA rotation. 0.96 FanDuel points per minute, 0.99 DraftKings points per minute. A little bit more relevant to the DraftKings slate than the FanDuel one. If you don't get LeBron, then maybe he takes a little bit of an uptick. Dyson Daniels, another guy hitting the board a fair amount in the mid-range from the guard spots. Point guard only on FanDuel. Point guard small forward has him a little bit more dynamic on DraftKings. Let's jump into the guards. I know this is kind of rushed and scattershot today, guys, but again, most of these percentages don't really mean all that much anymore. Poole will be a big question mark. He might have scratched already. We are seeing a good amount of value out of that Washington and Denver game in the original configuration of the slate. Cade, who I talked about before, really like this spot for Cade Cunningham, especially on FanDuel. There's a lot of value in him, both guard spots for 8,000. 83 point guard only against the lower cap has a negative impact on him, but he's still very, very playable on DraftKings. D'Lo, 31 minute projection, 6,500 both guard spots, 1.02 FanDuel points per minute. It's starting to be a pretty good buy for the points per dollar. 4.71. You could argue that projection could go up by point and change, but 25.5 FanDuel points in 31.9 minutes the last time out. Don't love it. But a playable piece that probably also picks up a little bit of value if there's no LeBron, just on the chance that he's going to be shooting a little bit more. Harden for 76 does show the best returns out of those Clippers players because he's a little bit cheap for being James Harden. 1.04 was the number on FanDuel, 1.05 on DraftKings. Point guard and shooting guard eligible on both spots. A little more expensive on DraftKings. Gives him a little haircut over there. Better play on FanDuel. But definitely very playable on both sites, obviously. But again, I do think that it's a situation where it's going to be a lot of even games for those guys and a lot of equal distribution. But on price, he's a little bit cheaper than both of the other two. So he gains a little bit of value over Kawhi and over Paul George. Howie looks dynamite. 1.52 FanDuel points per minute so far. I think we're at like a 1.5 even kind of a projection today. Where do we actually have? $1.47. So I've got him slightly below his seasonal average. I've got them. It's basically an even game for them in terms of expected possessions. But he's been a monster all season. 14% of winners on FanDuel, 8% of winners on DraftKings, with a little bit more money to spend for the stars. And I do put him on that caliber now, and he's priced that way. I think he's going to be a little bit more relevant than this to the DraftKings slate, just because you'll have plenty of money to spend salary-wise. There's Paul George again. Tyrese Maxey. Big-time points per minute upside, 1.18, 1.21 on DraftKings. Point guard only on DK at 9,200. Same price, point guard only FanDuel. Little slightly more relevant to the FanDuel slate, but a good play across sites with major ceiling upside, of course. Scoot, Brogdon. Brogdon looks like the more relevant play, 1.22 FanDuel points per minute. Came back 33.7 minutes the other day, 52.6 FanDuel points. A big, relevant piece of that Portland rotation. KCP showing a little value for Denver. Buddy, we talked about. Clarkson confirmed going to be playing after starting the day, questionable. 6,800, just kind of an is who he is result for Jordan Clarkson. It's going to be one of those guys that typically when you've got Jordan Clarkson left at the end of the night, you say, oh boy, I've got 3/4 of Jordan Clarkson left and I'm only 16 points back. And then you look at the end of the night and how did Jordan Clarkson only score me 4 FanDuel points the rest of the way? That kind of a player. But every now and then, Jordan Clarkson certainly pays off, and the price is all right. The positioning seems like we're going to have a lot more to do around the guard positioning in both guard spots on both sides. I feel like forward and center are going to fall together pretty obviously. Keontae George for 56. Seeing a little bit of love in the Sims on FanDuel, not so much on DK. This group of guys is Dyson Daniels, Buddy, and Julian Strother, who again might pick up a little bit. 3,600, shooting guard, small forward. Doesn't need much more at those prices. Shaden Sharp, solid 35-minute projection. Not really showing much value on either side, though. 4.72 points per dollar, 4.75 points per dollar. Seems a little high-priced at this point. Or at least high-priced in terms of who he's competing against for those positional shares. $604. Yeesh. Kevin O, I don't know that love is ever the correct word for KCP, but given the idea that he was already in a 35-minute projection, he's not gaining any minutes, I don't think. But with the idea that he might shoot the ball 2 more times and make one of them, or 0.8 of them, yeah, a little bit more because he was already relevant. 19% of winners originally on FanDuel, 13% on DK. So yeah, as a plug-and-play is who he is, 5,000-ish kind of a play. Definitely, he's playable. I wouldn't say I love him. I like him better on FanDuel for the lower price against the higher relative cap. That points per dollar number is a lot more significant on the FanDuel slate at 5,000 versus the 4.49 on DK. So those are some of the ins and the outs of the slate, guys. I don't think I'm even going to take the time to show the Ace Mine lineups. I'll do it real quick, just because I did run them and I know that's a key feature of why we're here. But these are going to be very different when we actually get down to it. All right. So originally, before everything changed, we were seeing there's some Strother right there. I see some John Collins up top. Bruce Brown, who we talked about. A lot of Zion. LeBron. We were getting some spend in the forward spots originally. Getting value guys around Justin Holiday originally. That'll change, but it'll just be replaced with a different name probably in the util situation. That's where some of our DeAndre shares will drop. This was very Starsy Scrubsy to begin with, and I suspect we're going to get even more Starsy Scrubsy. A lot of Roger Thompson. Like I said when I talked about him, a little bit higher on him than it seems like others are. I've got him more around what he's doing. Seems like that is who he is. So that could be an important inflection point for us versus them kind of a thing. Otherwise, a lot of this is super irrelevant now, especially the center spot. This is going to change radically. Those are what some of the lineups would have looked like in a different universe. It's like Clue. This is what could have happened. Similar over here. Good amount of Tyrese. Pretty Starsy Scrubsy. Fair amount of Cade. A lot of Brandon Ingram, who we didn't really touch on. Ingram, Zion, both of those guys are peak level performers on that team. This is where we're getting some of our Jalen Smiths, but we're also getting some Duran, some Embiids, Gafford, some Kessler, some Johnny Collins. Collins will be in a lot of these, yeah. Collins lands in the power forward a little bit more on FanDuel. That'll probably hold up with the DeAndre shares falling into center, assuming that's where they go, or assuming that's who sees the uptick. Interesting slate. This is going to be completely different than any of these lineups look like, guys. That's why we're not spending all that much time here. With that in mind, I am going to say goodbye so that I can take the next 15 minutes to get everything updated up on the site so that you guys can use it, if that's your choice. And then I'm going to build my own lineups. So good luck out there. 2 slates to take down, gang. Let's go get double takedown, or at least somebody go win something, huh? But good luck out there tonight. I will see you tomorrow. We'll be back here for a full NBA-only slate. Hopefully we'll have everything well aligned so that we can actually look through the accurate what the slate's going to look like, not a different slate completely. With that in mind, guys, see you tomorrow. Good luck tonight. Oh, and hit that like button. You guys rock. Thank you. Congrats again to XX Cubs also. See you.